Alright, so we might as well start off with why I was an asshole today, right? So, my current normal weekend schedule is to start skating, right? So, usually, since it's getting a little chilly in the morning, like today it was in the 30s, I think, when I got up, or when I woke up. So, I didn't get over here till like quarter to 11, but I was planning on skating like all week, and that's at least the one thing I'm consistent at is my Saturday morning skates. And however long it goes, that might vary, but I just knew I wanted to skate, right? So I plan it all week. And this has been how my past several weekends have gone. This morning, my mom comes in to tell me that my uncle is coming over somewhere between 11 and 11:30 to do some yard work to help out, and can I help him, kind of a thing. It's like, no, because this is literally the last possible minute that you could have waited to tell me, which I get she didn't know he was coming beforehand either, but still. So, whereas I was raised to drop everything because the family needed something, today I went ahead and skated anyway. And of course, she's pouting before I left the house and all sorts of irritated at me. And I heard her tell my dad as I was going out the door, I don't know what he had said to her, but she's like, well, I guess I'm getting ready to do some yard work. Because I wasn't going to stick around and participate. Looks like my uncle has been talking the past few weeks about coming over to help out at some point. Didn't know when. He would let us know, right? When he had a weekend that nothing else was going on. Today I think his girlfriend had other stuff that she was doing earlier in the day, so he had time available, so he chose to come over today to do that, right? Looks like I've had this plan. This has been my routine, but I'm supposed to drop everything. But I'm not doing that anymore. Way I figured, I have spent the majority of my life yielding to whatever my family wants, and it didn't get me anywhere other than I wasn't supposed to have my own life because I was just supposed to fall in line with whatever they needed me to do whenever they needed me to do it. So that's the start for today. But I refuse to just kind of carry that idea of that makes me an asshole. So that might be how I started the video, but I don't actually agree with it. Makes me think back a few months ago, I had someone who left me a comment and was genuinely asking what makes me the family disappointment, because she couldn't tell, like there was nothing there that made that label make sense. It's like, that's kind of the point. It was like my whole life I was raised to believe that if I wasn't catering to what my family wanted me to, what their expectations were for me, that it meant there was something wrong with me, right? But it's like the only thing that ever got me was a whole lot of dysfunction and inability to have my own life, right? So like even the things that I tried to do for myself along the way somehow would end up getting hijacked by the family. So it's like I found myself just continuously throwing everything away because the family needed me to be such and such. It's like, fuck that. Fuck that all the way. So yeah. I sent my brother the face, the little, I guess it's the emotionless emoji. And it's kind of been our go-to anytime something comes up with our parents and, we're being made to be aware that we have let them down in some kind of way, we go with the face, right? And either, depending on which one of us has something going on with the family at that point in time, we'll be the one that sends it, and the other one's usually like, uh-oh, now what? And sends their face in response as well. But then, of course, got to fill it in. So, yeah, and of course he got that. And it was kind of funny because what I found this morning was, after I sent that to him, I had this moment where it's like I was second guessing myself again. And like I just had this moment of thinking that his response was going to be something to let me know that I was out of line, in fact. And it's like, no, that's not the case. Just because we were made to believe that if we did not cater to whatever the family comes up with, then we were an issue, that does not mean that is truly the case, right? So I had this this feeling of, concern that my brother's going to like send me a message confirming that I was at the one out of line, and then, of course he didn't, because he knows exactly where I'm coming from on this whole thing too. And he's like, well, I could have said something in advance. It's like, why did they have to wait till the last possible minute? It's like, exactly. It's like, our uncle has been talking about coming over to help. That doesn't mean that we have to drop everything because he has the available time, right? So, and the whole thing annoys me too, because my dad's eating it up. And, I've talked on here a lot about, sorry, these bangs are driving me nuts. I think I'm growing them back out, which is why by the end of the time, okay, so I wash my hair like probably every 4 to 5 days because I'm trying to keep the colors as long as I possibly can. And so toward the end of it, the bangs just start standing up. So then I just like pin them back, and now there's no like flexibility. It's like, so I start with them down after I took a shower, so my hair got washed today, but obviously it did not help the bang situation because they're still all in my face. So I think I'm growing them out, but anyway. So going back to the deal with my dad, I have talked about how, anytime I've spent a lot of time like working on cleaning something, I get to a point where it's like I hit a wall and I have to like back off from it for a little while. And what I started to notice was, when I backed off and like was taking a break from having spent so much time exerting myself on cleaning up after everybody, their shit was continuing to creep in, right? So, and the big thing, and we'll go here again because it's starting to be an issue again. So I have a dog crate that I leave up in case Taz needs to be locked up for any reason. He's the one that's the biggest pain in the butt and occasionally needs it. Usually they all go outside together and get locked out up there, but if he's just being a butthead, he'll get to go in there. It doesn't happen very much, but on a great rare occasion. So the other part of it is, since the cage is up, that's where I put my skating stuff. My dog crate, my skate stuff, and I gotta air it out after I use it. So, but what I started to notice was like my dad's stuff started finding its way in there, and it might be a dirty fork, it might be an empty Diet Coke bottle, it might be his jacket, it might be his blanket, right? Anything. It's like he was going out of his way to leave stuff in my stuff so I would have to deal with it. And it's true for everywhere. So, so there's like frequently dirty silverware left on the table, or just like whatever he was eating, he leaves the whole package on the table, even though he knows there's a really good chance that the dogs are going to be a pain in the ass and try to get in the way of things. Speaking of which, she's snoring pretty well today. So my little sidekick is not feeling well. It's my little ZB. Whoops. Dropped my phone right out of the case. Anyway, so here's my ZB. She's snoring at me. That's pretty cool. I'm gonna fix that. Hold on. Okay, so my little sidekick, she got a second breakfast today, and it's not agreed with her, which she did not need to have that happen, but the others hadn't gotten theirs. And I was getting ready to go skate, so we threw some down. The problem, okay, we've been scatter feeding because the bowls need washed, and they're the slow feeders, so they're kind of a pain in the ass to wash outside of the dishwasher, but I need to make it happen. But since we've just been doing the scatter feeding thing here lately, she's getting more than her fair share, and she's very chunky, and yeah, but she's been like real slow moving. The other part of it is, despite the fact that we go through this every few months anyway, and I repeatedly tell my mom or ask my mom not to buy the rawhide, she ends up with a bag of it again. And then, because of course, used to all the dogs would chew on them. Currently, my dogs are the only ones that chew on them. I don't like rawhide anyway, because I know there's all sorts of health concerns with it. And for a while, we had not gotten it, because I kept saying I would rather them not have it, because it causes, it can cause blockages. The fucking chemicals and all that shit are like known to cause cancer. And I mean, we've had a good number of dogs that have died from, or that have had cancer at some point. Like Maggie had it. I think Tracy did. Yes, Tracy did. Tracy did. And we were told that she probably had like maybe up to 6 months left to live. And so that was what started us on having lots of dogs, because we went after a puppy and came back with 2. So then we had 4 dogs, because we still had Chance at that point in time. He was a puppy when, Tracy was old when we got him as a puppy, and then this was a couple years later, and we ended up going after another puppy and coming back with 2. So there was a whole thing, but then Tracy ended up living another 2 years. But we became a 4-dog household, and it's just kind of been crazy ever since. And since I'm stuck there for the time being, thanks to the whole divorce situation, and haven't made it back out of the house yet, there I be. And now there's 5. But still, I keep requesting that she stop getting the shit. And then she shows up with it somewhere along the line. And then I think it's largely part of what's going on with Ziva right now. Because she's been chewing a lot. She loves to chew. And, she loves carrots. And we were giving them carrots for a while because, we didn't have the rawhide. So that was working out. Except I'm sure they don't need like a shit ton of carrots but it's at least a better option, right? And much shorter lasting, but healthier anyway. So anyway, Ziva did have another one of her little episodes the other day, which I'm still not entirely convinced that it's not partly related from, when I fell and got my TBI, because I had her under my arm when I fell. And she was kind of out of it a little bit too. Like, we were both kind of dazed after the TBI, or after we fell and sustained the TBI. And like, she never had anything specific that seemed associated with it. And like, after a little bit, she seemed fine. But like a year later, she had this thing. It looked like she was having a seizure. But there was like nothing that we could connect it to, because she hadn't done anything right after the fall. So didn't know on that end. But then when I called the vet and said I thought she was having a seizure, they said to like keep track of like what she was doing in the time of the event, what she was doing, how she was acting, how she acted afterwards, and how long it was between events, right? So she did it the one time, and then she didn't do it again. And she was about a year and a half when she did it the first time. So it was like 2014. The next time she did it was 2020. Right? And then she did it in April and then again in May. And since that was in the middle of the pandemic and there was concerns with getting dog food, we ended up mixing in some cheaper stuff that we could get more easily with the normal stuff that they were getting. And at one point, we had run out of the good stuff and didn't realize we had run out of the good stuff, so it was all the junk food. And then she did it in April, and she did it again in May. And I figured out that was the thing that had changed, was that we had a mix of the food, and then it was just the garbage food, because it was easier to get. And there was like, I feel like that is a big part of the issue. So we stopped doing the cheap stuff altogether. I got back with the other stuff, and then she didn't do it again, right? For a while. After we took the rawhide out of the equation, it was a while, right? So I'm pretty sure that every time she has something with the crappy stuff in it and the chemicals and whatnot, that's what starts the thing, because she had another one of those events this past week, and my mom just got more of the rawhide, and before that, I mean, I don't even know, like, because it hasn't been like a regular thing by any means. It's like every now and then she wakes me up and cause like I can tell something's going on with like her breathing or whatever, and she starts, obviously she breathes kind of heavy anyway, but she breathes differently when she's getting ready to go into one of these moments. And it's like, when we got her to the emergency vet, the time in May 2020, I was at work when she had the thing going on, and my mom and dad took her to the emergency vet. And my mom got a video of it before they left, and the vet was glad that she had, because he said from that he could tell that it wasn't actually a seizure, but he didn't really know what was going on with it. And he said that the next step would be to get her in with like a neurologist. So that hasn't happened, because I mean, that's hella pricey and she doesn't do it regularly, so it's kind of, if it's based on the shit that's coming in and being offered to her, and I try to get that out of her diet, then it's not an issue. But then once the shit comes in, then it's an issue again. And it's like, I keep pointing out that seems to be a common link, but yet here we are. Anyway, going back to the shit with my dad, because there was a bit with that this morning too that kind of pissed me off. With Taz and Ziva, the way they chew, their dogs don't even get the chance to have the chewy stuff. Like, they can't even have fucking stuffed toys anymore, because Taz will kill them in the first like 30 seconds that they're there. So like, Ziva has a couple stuffed animals that stay on top of the fridge, except for once in a great while I'll hand it to her, so she can shake the shit out of it and be all excited to have it for a few minutes, and then once she drops it and is done with it, I'll put it back up. But their dogs, like, Pepper's got old teeth anyway, she's like 13, and Piper is 4, but their dogs like the bones after my dogs have chewed on them, but they don't really get the opportunity because I have 3, and they're kind of, they're butt heads. So, yeah, they don't share very nicely. But anyway, why that's relevant is, so my dad, okay, so every time I would do a lot, like, expend a whole lot of effort on cleaning or whatever, then I was noticing his stuff just kept kind of invading, right? It's like, whatever space I have, his shit's invading my space. And so, like, once I figured that out, started setting boundaries, and stopped cleaning up after everything, I was realizing, it's like, the man is literally trying to force me to have to clean up after him, one way or another. And since I have been pretty good about resisting that here lately, since I've been a lot more successful at setting boundaries and not getting pulled into the dumb shit, he's taking it elsewhere, right? So, my mom's just all thrilled to death when he goes and visits my grandma, because then she doesn't have to go visit my grandma. Nobody likes visiting my grandma because she's a miserable old woman. I'm the one that'll say that openly, though. But yeah, like, my dad would go over there and spend some time with her. More so before the strokes. Now he doesn't really want to do anything except for be a slob and make a mess for everybody else to have to deal with. But, and again, that is not new to the strokes, which is why, I still talk about this kind of stuff. It's like, this has always been how it's supposed to have been by their standards, by how we were raised, right? So back in December, he flat out told my brother that as the oldest, it is his responsibility to start cleaning up after his parents now that they're, on the decline or whatever. Because my dad is the oldest, and he took care of his parents when they were going downhill, and then my mom's the oldest, and she was taking care of her dad when he was going downhill, and now she's doing the same for her mom too. That's the ironic part, I guess, is that she did it so willingly for daddy. But if she can get out of going to visit my grandma periodically, she ain't above it. Because she's a miserable old woman. And misery loves company. So my dad and my grandma got along great. Because I'd watch their shitty, police bullshit on TV or whatever. And whatever dumb shit they could find. And they were content to trash talk whatever was going on TV, right? And so anyway, since my dad's not doing so great, he is eating it up that his brothers and sisters are so concerned about him. Because I'm not doing my brother is not doing what he was raised to do. As the oldest child, he's supposed to be here taking care of it. He's in Oklahoma. As the daughter, I am supposed to be doing this too. And no. My days of wasting my energy for ungrateful assholes, no, I'm not doing that anymore. So since I'm not doing that anymore, he and my mom, misery loves company. And just the way they bicker about everything. And, I've been talking to her about this kind of stuff too. It's like, look, he's flat out trying to force everybody else to have to clean up after him. He had no intention of continuing to put forth any kind of effort to take care of things and do things. Like, he was looking for the opportunity to, to come down out of that. And now his days of being a useful human are over and done with. So he's going to make it as hard on everybody as he possibly can. Even to the extent of, okay, so the incontinence is an issue, and the biggest issue of it is the fact that he will go and make a mess of things and not do anything about it because it's somebody else's job to do. My mom keeps going around and around with him. She said, I don't have a problem with the fact that you can't control some of this, and the incontinence thing that is not under your control. She said, I don't have a problem helping you with the situation. She said, what I do have a problem with is when you leave it on the bed, right? So he's got like 4 of these like freaking, I think they call them chucks or whatever. It's like a waterproof pad thing to go, to go under the old person. He's got like 4 of those on his bed, plus a waterproof mattress pad, and he'll still just leave the wet bedding on the bed, even if he's aware that something happened, which if he's had to change anything, he should be aware of it, right? But there again, no, he doesn't want to, right? So it's, God, it's really irritating. Just like that truck. I hate loud vehicles. They make my head hurt. So like even the stuff he is aware that he did, like the time he fucking shat on the floor and left it there, right? And then I went back and I said, is this shit or is this coffee? Knowing full well that it was shit. And he is laying in bed. And he says, it's shit. It's like, then why the fuck did you leave it there and not clean it up? It was not near that subtle. I was yelling that day. And he got up, and I don't know that he did much cleaning of anything, but he at least sat down there with some cleaner, and then later was laying on the floor. It's like, that's disgusting. Yeah. But it, I pointed out to my mom, it's like, the issue that I have with all this stuff, I said, okay, like the shitting on the floor thing, and that was infuriating enough as it was. But then, I ended up having to get the carpet cleaner in there because we ended up, that was like one of the last things he did before we shut the windows and turned the air conditioning back on for a while. And because we were having to shut the house up, obviously we can't leave that there because I'm not trying to live in that kind of filth. And so I took the carpet cleaner in there. Excuse me. And I kid you not, that man was fucking smirking. And it's like, that is the shit that I have a problem with. When I first moved back in, I went off because he was going into my bathroom, peeing on the floor and leaving it there. So when I get up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night and step in it, it was not pretty, right? And I went off. And so my mom said, and she knew it was a problem too, because every time she would try to clean that bathroom, he would go in there and make a mess of it. It's like, he doesn't ever try to clean up anything after himself. Period. He's never given a shit about trying to clean up after himself, which is a big part of the problem, right? So, and of course, he's of the generational mindset of, he's the man. He doesn't have to clean up shit, right? You know, even if it's his own shit, right? He should not have to do this. That's what the women are for, right? The women that are somehow less than he is, right? So since that was the thing, and I went off, my mom told him he couldn't use that one anymore. There are 3 bathrooms in that house. It's not a problem. There is one in the family room, which is right next to the couch that he has destroyed because he can't sit on it like a normal person. He has to, like, explode into it and, you know, break it down. That thing was in great shape when we got it. We bought it used off of the marketplace, and it was awesome. And that was kind of my go-to spot. But then as soon as he retired, he started sitting in that spot. He broke it, right? Because that's what he does. He sits on the furniture so hard that it breaks. And so, yeah. Anyway, but there's that bathroom next to the couch, and then there's the bathroom in their bedroom, right? And then my bathroom is in the hall in between the two, right? So, you know, wherever he's closest to, that's the one he's going to go to most of the time for urgency's sake. But it's like he goes out of his way to make a mess and to be disgusting otherwise. And like, okay, so going back to the bathroom thing. So he hasn't been allowed to use my bathroom since I've been back. And again, there are 3 fucking bathrooms. There are 3 people in the house. It shouldn't be that big of a deal. But there again, it is what it is. So when he had the stroke back in April, because mind you, he took himself off of all of his meds, including like, he's like got 4 different blood pressure meds or something. So naturally, if you just stop all of those cold turkey without having done anything to try to improve your health, you put yourself at risk of stroke. And so there we were, right? And then also he had to have the surgery where they took a piece of the artery in his eye because they were testing for some condition. That surgery day was where we found out that he had stopped taking his meds. And that surgery, we were later informed, not beforehand, they told us after the fact that those types of surgery can raise the risk of somebody having a stroke. So add the surgery right after he's taken himself off of all of his blood pressure meds and everything else. It was all the meds, right? He stopped all of them cold turkey and ended up having strokes. Go figure. You know, and they said multiple strokes, like on both sides of his brain. I had just gone to bed. And I might have been asleep for 5 minutes. And my mom comes barging in the room, which, she knocks on my door, which sets off all the dogs. And, you know, it ends up being this whole massive ordeal. It's like I just fell asleep and now I'm just getting rudely awakened like this, and it's really obnoxious. And she's all concerned about how he's acting and thinks he needs to go to the hospital because she's not so sure he's not having a stroke. So my question was, if you think he's having a stroke, why would you be the one taking him to the emergency room? Why would you not call 911 so, you know, like the people that might be able to do something for him in that situation could do it? Why do you want to completely leave that out so we just drive him there, right? So obviously my 5 minutes of sleep and the rude awakening, I was really pissy. So I went ahead and called They called 911. And then, of course, they're asking me all these questions, and it's like, I don't like this dude anymore. I don't know what's been going on with him. So then I have to hand my phone off to my mom. It's like, here, they're asking questions that I don't know the answer to. And I go and, get the dogs put up because we're getting ready to have the fire department in the house, right? So before they got there, he says something about going to the bathroom. And since they were on the couch, or he was on the couch in the living room, my mom says, well, we'll just go to this one because it's closer. He was smirking then. So it's like always there. It's like, that is the thing that is so infuriating, is to see. It's like, nobody else catches these things, but it's like, I'm always right there and aware of what's going on. Fucking smirk, man. And it was like the same. Okay, so before the eye surgery, he had this other appointment where I think they were going to do, it was supposed to be like a fix of a previous eye surgery, and actually the eye and not the artery behind, and what they said, I don't even know what it was that they were like, yeah, we're not doing this surgery, we're going to wait, and you need to be tested for this other condition. The day that part happened, my mom still had the other surgery because they were both going for the same sort of thing. I don't know what it was. But I was supposed to be driving them to the appointment, right? But my dad could still see at this point, and he decided he wanted to drive. It's like, fine, I'll drive on the way back, right? So as we're going, they're getting real close to being late. And I think my mom asked how much further or whatever, and he said, I don't know, I thought we would have passed it by now. It's like, you mean you don't even know where you're going? Interesting. So I looked it up, I just, Googled the address, and what came up, it said, oh, you just passed it. He didn't want to believe me. He continued going straight. And it was just I could, it's really aggravating being able to sense the energies of things. And when people are flat out being dicks with their energy, which is him all the time. Yeah, I was like, all right, keep going then. Surely we'll figure it out, right? I mean, surely this thing doesn't know anything about where we're going or whatever, but it says the address is back there, so I mean, by all means. But the way he came back at me and was real hateful, like it was somehow my fault that he had gone past this thing. And it's like, whatever. But I had that moment, it was just like this massive flare of rage in my system, and I was just like, you're fucking dead to me, old man. I don't even fucking give a shit. And yeah, so that was before all this. Not by no means all of it. Because there again, if you would like to revisit the video that, it's now called, originally posted 11/17/23, that was the one where he had called me a dumb bitch that day. So, and then there's something after that where, when Gracie was 2, my brother and sister-in-law wanted to take her to Disney World, even though it was before she was going to remember anything. And my parents went with them, and they were all very concerned that my dad was going to get them thrown out of the park. He apparently was showing his ass and he was having issues with the damn electric cart and damn near drove it up the wall. And I think that was around security and just being overall belligerent anyway. my mom says that when she was there talking to the psychiatrist that he has to go to now because she's making him, he said he believed that he's probably been having these strokes for a while. It's like, that still does not change the fact that some of the stuff that he's been doing, he always had that idea that he shouldn't have to do anything because somebody else should have to clean up after him, right? Because, women are less than, so we're supposed to be existing for the sole purpose of cleaning up after his ass, so it's like, but anyway, like the thing today, going back to my uncle being there. So my uncle was there because he's trying to help out his big brother, right? Since I'm not doing my part, since my brother moved halfway across the country and is not doing his part, he's basically crying to his family that, that things are so hard and we're not getting anything done and blah, blah, blah. But essentially, it's very much trying to get them to do the work now, right? So he spent some time talking to the same brother, who's the one that moved back up here with the new girlfriend after he's been, with the other one for like 25 years or better and just left her down there while she's dying of whatever. And I mean, she's old for one thing, but I think she might also have cancer. I'm not going to swear to that. But she wouldn't ever come and connect with the family. So why they were together as long as they were, who knows? But then he starts dating this other woman that apparently he dated in high school. And now they're together and living together. And, he left the old lady down there by herself. I mean, she's got family down there, so it's not completely by herself. But still, but that brother is wanting to help. So when we it's like a dust thing or a bug or whatever. Anyway, so when we went to the youngest brother's birthday at Applebee's the other day, my dad was down there talking to this brother, and how messy things are and just can't clean up anything and blah, blah, blah. And next thing I know, there's like this whole mob of them. My uncle and his girlfriend, and then my aunt that lost her husband last year, and the other aunt who, I think her husband wasn't able to make it that day. Her first husband was really toxic and abusive, and he died like back in, I wanted to say around 2006. So the new husband is a good guy, but he's had a lot of health issues, but he wasn't, I think he had to work that day. But yeah, like next thing I know, my two aunts are talking to me about, oh, well, I'll come help you clean the garage. It's like, fuck that. I'm very much not a fan of that idea. And, they were like, do you think it would bother your mom terribly? It's like, yeah, I think she would have a big problem with that, to be honest. It's like, in the past several years, anytime somebody's gotten to the garage, it's usually me because I've gotten sick of looking at it. And, we had something come up, like, we want the car in the garage for winter. So, it's on me to do a whole bunch of cleaning and getting shit cleared out of the way. Once I get, like, when I'm really driven on getting the thing handled and getting it done, we get shit done. And my mom will come out there because then I've already started, and then she feels bad because I'm doing something and she's not doing anything, so she comes out and she'll participate too. As long as it's the two of us, it's fine. As soon as my dad is out there, it's just him throwing a temper tantrum and getting in the way. And it's like, if it's not a box of fucking cords for him to tie together, get the fuck out of here. We don't want any part of that, right? But to try to organize half of his siblings to unite to come clean our garage, It's like, no, because my mom and I would have to be in the middle of that anyway, because they're not going to know what to do with anything. So it's like, fuck this. But, he was, oh, woe is me in it. And now, like, his siblings want to come help him out, and it's no big deal. They, that's what they want to do for their big brother. They did it for their mom and their dad, and they will unite to help him, right? But it's like, that's the point, is he just wants somebody else to cater to his shit. Since my uncle was over there doing yard work, my mom went ahead and she bought lunch, which is fair, right? He didn't say, hey, you have a broken back, come help me in the yard. He was trying to help so they didn't have to worry about shit, right? So she is going to buy lunch. Fine. And she says, well, because I'm standing there, she says, will you go get it? Yes, I don't have a problem with that, right? Because we're having the conversation. We're not just assuming that, it's just going to be, like I'm just going to drop everything that I had planned to do today, like my skating, so I could do what she, stop so I could help him when I didn't know he was coming over until right before I was getting ready to leave. No. But it's like, I've noticed my dad keeps doing that with his, especially this brother, because, I think this is it's the one closest to him in age, right? So I think third in the line is my dad. One aunt, one other, this uncle, the other aunt, and then the youngest two brothers. So he is the two that are closest to him in age. He knows that they are the type that will bend over backwards to help. So he's trying to force somebody else to bend over backwards and help him. Because he had no intention, once he got old and useless, of doing anything and contributing in any kind of way to society anymore. I've checked out. I don't have to do it. Now you have to clean up after me. Fuck you. And that's a big thing too. The psychiatrist flat out said he cannot drive. Period. Until some of this other stuff is more handled, better balanced or whatever. Because the most recent strokes from when he stopped using his CPAP machine for 2 weeks, which he had used that without a problem for years. And suddenly he just doesn't feel the need to use it for 2 weeks, right? And he has another stroke. And that one, I think he said, was the frontal cortex. But there's a whole lot of stuff, that the road rage that he already had is probably not something that mixed well with that stroke, right? So the psychiatrist says he does not want him driving, period, until he can get better on any end of things. And he's not going to get better because he doesn't want to. He has maxed out his usefulness to society because he worked as much as he had to, and then once he retired, it's time to be useless. It's time to make it hard for everybody else to function, right? That going back to that point that I have been talking about recently with the older generations being so glad to fuck everybody over in the younger generations because I had it bad. Now you have it bad too. Haha. Right? It's like, what the fuck is this? What is the point of leaving the world so other people have to struggle just as much as you did? Why do you want everybody to struggle? But since I am not of that mindset, and I think that, I'm of the mindset that I feel like every single person on this planet has their own unique set of gifts, and like combination of like the different groups that you can pull together because of different things that you've done. Like, okay, in my lifetime, so I had my brief little military stint, that honestly, I don't really like talking about it from the standpoint of, I've always struggled with, I don't have, it's a kind of a love-hate relationship with that whole thing. It's like what I was there to learn, I did. But also, you know, since I broke my brain and had to get out before my contract was even over, yeah, I don't feel like I did anything, right? So I don't feel like I, have anyway, that's irrelevant. The point is, I had the military, right? I had this seminary time. I had, my fucking, there was the married time. It's like the different layers of things that you've been through and the different points of connectivity with other people. I feel like everybody has a specific role that they are supposed to fulfill, right? But I feel like the world that we are in presently is set up specifically to block us from being able to step into those roles and fulfill them. So like the fact that you're expected to work so many hours a week while the government takes a fucking huge ass chunk of it. So like you work for, like they'd be happy if you'd work 80 hours a week and didn't get to, weren't able to have a house or a family or anything else. They love that kind of shit, right? They fully thrive on the fact that they're stealing people's money, their hard-earned money, to do whatever this current government's doing. And as I've said before, and will say again, this government is simply the embodiment of what the system has always been trying to allow for, right? The toxicity, the inability to give a shit about anybody else, especially if they don't have money, but while actively blocking anybody from being able to have money, right? So fucking government takes some stupid ass percent. I don't even know. What's coming to mind is the Falling in Reverse song, Prequel, where he says something about kissing the hand that takes half in taxes. It's like, yeah. But it's like to do what with? It's like, obviously the government does not have the people in it that are responsible enough to put the money to useful spaces. Right? And it's like, it doesn't matter. Okay. Red and blue does not matter, because the same people that have the money that are pouring what they have into, the groups to get their candidate out in front of everybody. They have a specific candidate that they approve of allowing to be in the role that, we get stuck voting for. So are you going to vote for this asshole or that asshole? Neither one of them's going to do shit to change anything, but appearances, right? And, at the end of the day, it's the same fucking people, the rich ass corporations or whatever, that are paying to keep whichever candidate, and it doesn't matter to them, right? They benefit by fucking over the rest of us, regardless of whether red or blue is in office. And this is the current government is simply the full embodiment of the toxic system playing out. And I don't know. Anyway, but that the whole thing, it's like, because the older generations had it so hard, they enjoy that the rest of us have to struggle and can't do anything, right? They enjoy that we are, we have our hands tied because we don't have the money to make the things happen like they do. They can put whatever asshole in front of, on the TV and, take over the control of the media, right? So fucking media just benefiting the same system, which thrives whoever it screws over, right? It's like, as long as it has people in essentially slave roles, right? So we have to work our lives away, and they're stealing money from our paychecks every single time and claiming it's going for these programs that are supposed to help us, but it's not really, and like, go back to Jolly Good Ginger and the video I saw him do where he's talking about poverty is what got him in the military. Because they love the broke people. And look how wonderful things can be if you come and do this honorable thing and serve your country, right? And then you end up being a pawn in the system for people who literally do not care about you. And, you're just a number in the machine. So if the machine wants to go throw its weight around and start war with some people, then it can, and it doesn't give a shit who you are or like how much. It doesn't give a shit how important you are to your family. Which, going back to that whole why veterans' health issues have not been prioritized, right? So there's like a huge percentage of the homeless population that is former military, and forgotten, thrown away once they're not useful to fulfill the task the system wants them to fulfill anymore, right? And again, when I went in back in 2011, part of my process for going in was had to prove that what was on my birth certificate aligned with me, right? So, and since that was like the law of the time, men and women had to go into their different groups, and so I end up in this room full of other females that want to enlist in the military, and they strip you down to your bra and your panties and your socks to keep some dignity. And then, you get to do the duck walk and all the stupid shit to make sure your body functions as it should. And, so they don't have to worry about any health issues while you're in the military, all that fun stuff. But then the next step is you got to prove what's in your pants is what's on your birth certificate, right? So how important this is, right? And the military proven to be female doctor and the military proven to be female assistant to the doctor, because you can't have just one person in there with you because they don't want any risk of anybody being accused of anything, right? So you got the two doctor-esque roles, and they got to check the inside and the outside to make sure it's all female. And yeah, once you're approved, you get to go in, right? So as I've been revisiting this, I have realized that is the exact same energy that allows for the human trafficking stuff to happen so easily, right? It's that same energy that allows for those sorts of things to exist, especially considering, that like all the fucking people on that damn Epstein list, they all got their money, and they all have lots at stake of keeping that hidden from everybody else. And so we're not supposed to know, even though the fucking we got a pedophile in chief in charge of things and destroying everything as fast as he possibly can, because at the end of the day he knows. At the end of the day, they all know that this is, it's just the embodiment, right? It's the embodiment of all this stupid shit we've been handed down, the toxic beliefs, it is the dumb shit that nobody else wanted to deal with, or I think even the level of nobody else was able to deal with, right? So going back to the whole the thing I talked about periodically, Dolores Cannon had this book that I have, and it's a really good book, and it's the 3 Waves of Volunteers in the New Earth. And of course there's, I think the first wave is like those that stand as sort of beacons for the rest of us, right? So like, I talk about them a lot. Like the Keanu Reeves of the world. Brendan Fraser's one that has been big for me. Dudes in Metallica, I like talking about them. Ozzy, let's go with Ozzy, Prince of Darkness, right? So the people that embraced the fullness of who they are, and are essentially lights for the rest of us to recognize. They're the beacons that help us to keep going when we might not otherwise, and the second wave, which I think is a big with the millennial group especially. I've heard some people talk about how like millennials are those that have a whole lot of struggles with apathy, and because essentially there's a whole lot of us out there that are essentially energetic sponges, and we are finding all the stuff that doesn't work and trying to transmute it so we can make something better, right? Because this shit sucks. And like apathy, that's been one of my biggest hang-ups, right? That's like the one thing that I will get snagged on, and then, or have been known to get snagged on, and then like can't go forward. And it's like, because it's hard. But then the third wave, I think this is also, of course, like autism has been around for a while, right? But I feel like it's more of a noticeable thing, more talked about, all these things, because it goes more with that third wave where they're teaching a new way of being. So, one of the biggest things that the biggest problems that the older generations of my family have had with Gracie, my niece, who is autistic, is they cannot rely on the same shit that swayed me and my brother so easily to fall in line and just do whatever, right? We went along with the bullshit because the guilt and the shame was soul crushing for us. But then Gracie, it's like she's still affected by it, but it's not this. It's like, I think the way I see it with her, okay, so like one of the big things that I noticed being around her, because when I first moved back, my mom was watching her a lot. And one of the things that I noticed was she would always lash out at me the most. And, I've talked about this on here several times too, about how it's like that kid picks up the energy that's already in the environment, and it's like she amplifies it and just spits it out somewhere. So when, I've talked on here a lot about how when it comes down to it, there's sort of this loathing that my parents have toward me. And so she would pick up the energy, right? And it's like, I wouldn't be doing there. I would be standing in the kitchen playing on my phone over by the sink away from everybody. My mom would be at her computer minding her own business, and Gracie would be sitting in her seat next to my mom. And she would just like go off and like start screaming at me and like wanting to smack me and like all these things, because ultimately she's an amplifier. So the energy that's already there in the environment, she's just picking it up and spitting it out. And so of course I was on the receiving end of that a bunch, which has also been a big part of helping me sort through the stuff that I've been kind of navigating my way through. Yeah, my hands are getting cold. Zibley's still resting. Anyway, is there anything else I want to cover with that? I don't know. It's just that whole thing where the older generations think that it's somehow cute and funny that they didn't improve anything for any of us, right? It's just like they're content with continuing to fuck things up because that's how they received it, right? So, haha, you have things as bad as we did. And okay, so I mentioned that movie that I watched the other day, Clown in a Cornfield. At one point the girl gets a car and it's a stick shift and she doesn't know how to do that. And, her dad's talking about, well, I thought it would be a bonding thing, whatever. And it's kind of funny because somewhere, I think it was after I watched that movie, I had this little comedy thing. This is Zoltan. I don't remember his last name, and I have no idea how to pronounce it. I know I can't even spell it. So he's not from around here, but I can't remember the last name. But I can tag it in the thing. Pretty sure he's on YouTube. Though I mostly follow him on Instagram. Anyway, the point of that was he had this video that came across my newsfeed on Instagram, and he was talking about how emasculating it was to have the opportunity to drive a stick shift because he was never taught how to drive a stick shift, right? And what I was thinking of is my dad enjoys the fuck out of like all these things that pop up on like Facebook or whatever when it's talking about we'd really cripple a whole generation if the only thing they had available was the stick shift and nobody can drive those. It's like, but nobody can drive those because you didn't fucking teach us, right? So it's like, why is this so hilarious when you were the one that didn't teach, like, you didn't teach me how to do that. And like, it was never a priority or anything, but you think it's hilarious that it would potentially cripple a whole generation that wouldn't be able to do anything if this was the only option. And yes, I'm aware that there are exceptions on all of these things, right? So like, the beacons, there are others in different age groups that fall into that, and the same with the transmuting group. It's not all just millennials by any means, right? It's just, that's my focal point, the go-to immediate association for that. Anyway, I think that was the other thing that I didn't finish. Going back to that point on, I started to say that I feel like everybody has a role on this planet that they are meant to fulfill. And if we are able to learn the things to help us more fully come into understanding of who we are and what we're here to do even, and are able to actually come together in those roles, then we can fucking change this whole damn planet, right? But it's like all the stupid shit from the older generations that think it's so hilarious that they fucked things up for us and didn't want to make anything easier, didn't want to teach us things and how to possibly have better. And I get that they didn't really know how to make it better for us, but at the same time, the fact that they have no awareness that their blind acceptance of this is how things must be, you know, that doesn't work, right? They just, like my father especially, he just blindly accepts that this is how it has to be, and my parents were worthless before me, so now you have to deal with me and my worthlessness, right? That kind of bullshit. Yeah. But, it's like the system and the older generations are actively trying to block us from being able to create better, to do better, to have better, to be better, right? It's like all the ways they can keep us bickering and in conflict with one another, and they're pleased because, haha, you have it as bad as I did, haha. I was bullied, I turned out great, haha. No, you didn't, you're a fucking bully yourself. Piss off with that nonsense. But my hands are cold. I mean, my dog's resting here pretty good, but I think it's time to go home. So, and 111. And yes, I did see it at 111.11, but I didn't spit it out there quick enough. But I did have 11:11 on there while it was clicking away. But yeah. Anyway, so I'm going to wrap it up. As always, I appreciate you. Until the next time. See ya.